CNBC-TV18 Weekender, only on CNBC-TV18.
Welcome back. You're watching CNBC-TV18's Weekender, and we are at Microsoft India's headquarters and in conversation with Anant Maheshwari. Anant, thank you for being with us. Now, right before we cut into the break, you were talking about digital transformation, and if I can sum up, a recent report that was published that mentioned that digital transformation alone will add $154 billion to India's economy and would actually increase the GDP by 1% by 2020. Considering this and considering everything that you said, what do you think is Microsoft's role in this mission?
So if you just look at what have the organizations who are leading in digital transformation, what have they done, and if we learn from their learnings, you really find that there are many areas that they're finding value in, whether it's doing more and connecting better with their customers, doing more with their employees, or being able to completely optimize and create efficiencies in their supply chains and operations, or finally creating new products and services. So there are many four different ways that you can go and drive digital transformation broadly. Right. And if you look at what have been the areas that they haven't done immediately right, and they've found them as blockers or areas that they have to do better on. Number one is finding the right skills and capabilities to drive digital transformation. Second is driving culture, which is very, very difficult to change. And then finally, finding the right set of partners who can enable digital transformation. Microsoft can help in all three. First two, purely from our own experience. We are a company that is digitally transforming ourselves over the last many years.
Yes.
And therefore, we can share a lot of that learning around how we've completely revamped the skills and capabilities, both inside our company and in our partner ecosystem. And then secondly, how we've changed our culture, which is very aptly summarized in Satya's book, Hit Refresh. Where he's spoken about how the culture of the company is changing. Let me talk about the last one, which is finding the right partner. That's where I think Microsoft has completely transformed itself. In the past, I would say really 5 years or prior, a lot of the focus would have been around in the company to say, we've made this, and therefore we should take it to our customers.
Yes.
And even the customers would look at it, okay, as long as it is from Microsoft, you will promote it, but if it is not from Microsoft, we know that you may not even find it easier to sort of integrate it.
Right.
Overall. 5 years later today, it's a very different company. We go and tell our customers that we provide maybe the base infrastructure, the base applications, the base modern workplace, that you can potentially use in your business. And there are such a large range of partners that we bring in who, with their own intellectual property and in their own capabilities, will really drive the digital transformation of all of our customers. Now that becomes a very powerful combination for any enterprise or any government which is thinking about digital transformation, because they get the best of both worlds.
Yes.
We would have broadly 3 or 4 categories of partners. They're the classical system integrators, which will be most of the IT services companies of India, who are driving the core services work for both global and Indian companies.
Right.
The second category would be the independent software vendors, ISVs as we call them. And these are generally startup companies or young companies who would be in a niche or in an area like HR or finance or operations or IoT, where they would have a very core capability of solving problems. The third set of companies would be managed service providers who provide infrastructure, and many of the data center capabilities would fall in there. And then finally would be the channel and the partners who really create the hands and legs to actually get the whole work done in much of the work that we do. So if you look at those range of partners, very different capabilities come in from each one of those. And the one that I'm most excited about today is the independent software vendors, because I think that's truly bringing the power to our customers, where they get the solidity and the long-term tech partnership of Microsoft, while they get the agility and the new innovation of these startup companies inside their ecosystem. You bring those two together to drive digital transformation, and most of the enterprises really find that unbeatable.
I know you said that you want to be a meaningful player, but what would your top focus be? Let's not go way ahead of time, but your top focus for 2018 as part of digital transformation, what is on your agenda?
So two things very simply. I think working with the governments and working with the organizations who are driving digital transformation, as simple as that, because they are both very different plays.
Okay.
When you work with the government, you have to think about not just government as a customer, but government as an enabler to serve consumers.
Right.
So it's really G2C that you have to think about when you enable the government. While when you work with a lot of the enterprises, it may be B2B, but it's B2B2C in many ways, because they are really driving that digital transformation for their own customers, who are individuals. So in a way, we are thinking about the larger population of India, but immediately we work with either a government or a company. And the kind of work that we do in either is very different.
Right.
It has some commonalities of technologies, but how it comes together becomes different. I'll take the example of the organizations first. Across verticals, whether it's banking or finance or manufacturing or the unicorn of the startup world or healthcare, there are very different plays that we have already implemented across the different companies, and then those lighthouse use cases inspire many others to go after it. And on the government side, it's both the central government and the state governments that we are working with. And one of the things that inspires me most on the government work is, for example, what one of the state governments did on schooling. They identified that the 10th standard is the point at which the maximum dropouts happen in the country. So if you're able to apply artificial intelligence and machine learning to predict when that student is about to drop out, and go and engage that student at that point in time and retain that student back in the academic world, essentially that's the difference between a demographic bomb and a demographic dividend for our country. And that's a very significant population.
All right, Anant, I'll want you to park that thought. On that note, we're going to take a quick break on CNBC-TV18's Weekender. So far, we've decoded everything that Microsoft India is doing in digital transformation. But on the other side, we're going to try and decode Anant's transformation. So stay tuned with us.
CNBC-TV18 Weekender, only on CNBC-TV18.